Well, hi and welcome back for another video. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Peter Lamont. I'm a New Jersey business and litigation attorney, and I make videos like this to help people understand the legal system and how the law works and applies to you. In today's video, I want to talk about using the internet to research case law. And I want to caution you on doing so and explain how to do it and how to use it so that it actually benefits you instead of misleads you. So let's start first with an explanation of what case law is. Case law is essentially decisions of prior cases that courts and lawyers look to for precedent. In other words, we look at this case law, the prior cases, and we say to ourselves or to a judge or in a motion, look, in this case that was ruled on by the appellate division, the case found A, B, C, or D. And therefore, if you apply that case and that court's decision to the facts of our case, you should reach the same conclusion. That's what we use it for. But when you use the internet to search for case law, what you find is oftentimes not accurate, and it can mislead you into believing something about your case or your claim that just simply isn't true. Case law, even if it is reported accurately, is extremely complicated and difficult to understand, especially if you're not a lawyer. Lawyers receive special training on how to interpret the court's holdings or rulings in cases. We know what the case is being used for and how it's being applied, not just what it says. There are times when a case might say one thing, but courts have ignored that section of it. They don't use the case to support that particular argument. In fact, that argument might be overturned, but there's another part of the case that is applicable to your claim. You need to make sure that you are narrowing your search to the state that you're in. Oftentimes when people submit a generic search query to Google, you're going to get cases in every state. So what's important to understand is that when you're in, let's say, New Jersey, the only cases that are really going to be relevant to your case and that the court will even look at are cases that are based out of New Jersey. So when you do your Google search and you come up with cases in Virginia and California, and they, you believe they stand for the premise that you want to convince the court of, they might look at this and say, this has no bearing on us. We're New Jersey. We're not California or Virginia. So that's a pitfall. Another factor is that different courts' decisions have different weights. What do I mean? Well, if a lower court has a case and they issue a ruling, the lower court's ruling might not hold as much weight as the appellate court's decision or the Supreme Court's decision in your state. Depends on what your state calls it. So, for example, just as an aside, the highest court in New Jersey is the Supreme Court, but the highest court in another state, for example, New York, they don't call it that. They call it the Court of Appeals. So this is another factor. You have to understand the structure of your court system and know which court would actually control, which court's ruling would hold more weight than a lower court's ruling. So that's something else that you have to factor into this. Another issue which you're not going to easily identify online is courts may have negatively treated a particular case. In other words, a lower court might have in 1972 decided one thing, but a court in 1997 might have reevaluated that decision and then overturned it, or they went in a different direction, or they identified a distinction from that case to the current case. And now the precedent is different. So you might find those old cases online and you might say, look, this case says what I want it to say. But the fact of the matter is that that case might have negative treatment. And if you try to argue that case in your current case, a court could look at it and say, no, you've missed the boat. You are using a case that has been negatively treated and doesn't apply. It doesn't help you. Additionally, reading the cases, I think it becomes very confusing to the untrained eye as to what the court is actually saying. Some of these decisions are 20, 30 pages long. And if you're looking for one particular piece to support your argument, you might be distracted by the bigger picture and you might not understand the nuances of what the court is trying to say or what their holding ultimately is. So for these reasons, it's very important that, when you're doing your online research, that you take it with a grain of salt. There's nothing wrong with going online and, searching legal issues and trying to figure out whether or not there's cases that might support your claim or, give yourself some self-help up front. But at the end of the day, if you are involved in a litigation matter, whether you're being sued or you need to sue somebody, you are always best off getting a lawyer. It's very difficult to be successful as a pro se litigant. Sometimes you can be, and it really depends on your time commitment and your willingness and ability to really spend a significant amount of time learning what you have to do in order to litigate a case. But for most people, you don't have that time and you don't have that ability to commit to essentially learning how to be a lawyer while you're trying to litigate your case. So it's always a better idea when you're dealing with litigation to hire a lawyer. So that said, once you've hired that lawyer and you've done your preliminary research, if a lawyer says to you, look, I know that you think that this case means A, but it doesn't, you need to rely on that lawyer's interpretation of the case, because as lawyers, we're trained to understand what it is that the court was ordering or holding or what that decision really means. In summary, it's not a bad idea to look things up. It's not a bad idea to kind of get an idea of what your rights might be. That's a good thing. But when it comes to case law, you have to be very careful. You can't just believe that what you have found in a case is going to support your claim. It might be outdated. It might have negative treatment or been overruled. It might be in another state. It might be a lower court, and there's a higher court's decision that went in a different direction. And finally, you might interpret the case to mean one thing, but a lawyer or a judge might interpret it differently. So those are the factors to keep in mind. So I tell you this only because I want you to, be careful when you're going online searching specifically case law. I'm not talking about, searching legal definitions or legal causes of action. I'm specifically talking about case law because it is quite complicated to pull out those nuances and what it is that the court is actually saying and what applies to your case. All right, well, hopefully this helps you understand a little bit more about how complicated case law itself can be, and maybe gives you some guidance if you are going to do your own research as to what things to look for. That's going to do it for this video. Please make sure that if you like this video and this type of content, that you leave a comment below. It really helps out the channel. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up, ring the notification bell if you're interested in receiving notifications as to when we have new videos. And please make sure to let your friends, your family, colleagues know about the channel. We hope that we are providing quality content, that I'm sort of demystifying, if you will, some of the complexities of the legal system. All right, that's going to do it. I'll see you next time.